Good evening, learning journey. Good evening to the healing journey. Again, we're on this learning journey on the last Monday of December 2024. We are just glad to be with you this evening, and we're here in the Christmas season. I put little bells on for you. So, to give you a little holiday cheer, sometimes we have to look up, and when we look up, it makes our all of our feelings are
With you
upbeat,
this evening,
and
and we're
that's what we're doing. So, again, we just thank you for being with us. Good evening, Lee.
Good evening, Len. Good evening, Doctor. So good to be here this evening. We've had such a wonderful year as we come to the end of it, and we're looking for great things in 2025. We're looking to thrive. Thank you for
All
being here.
right. Wonderful. We do have a special guest with us this evening, and this is Dr. James Brown, Dr. Brown James. And Dr. Brown James is a licensed mental health counselor, qualified clinical supervisor, and assistant professor in Central Florida. She is also a board certified counselor, a board certified telemental health provider, and a Florida behavioral health case manager supervisor with over 20 years of experience working with adults, children, families, and couples in many clinical settings. I welcome her tonight because you just don't know. She offers free mental health. She has a nonprofit organization, and we have partnered with her. And just, it's amazing how God will give you just what you need, but it's in His timing. And we were looking for more mental health people to come on board. And here's Dr. Brown James. And we just thank you for being with us tonight. And I want you to just tell the people how you got interested in mental health. What
Yes, well,
started
thank you.
the journey?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Well, as a mental health counselor for so many years, I've seen a lot of things, witnessed a lot of situations that people have gone through, a lot of traumatic experiences. And one of the biggest things for me was noticing people not getting quality, culturally competent, ethical mental health care. There are services out there. Even if you have insurance, sometimes your options are limited,
Mhm.
depending on where you live, depending on what your insurance covers. And then there are those who don't have insurance at all. So then they're stuck not receiving any services, or if they do, they're stuck receiving services in places that don't really offer the best quality, or there's a very long waiting list, or there are limitations in what they can do. So I'm the type of person, I've always been the type of person where if I see a problem and it bothers me, I'm going to figure out how to fix it. Even if I have to get a team together or, pray about it, whatever I need to do to fix it. So that led to me starting, well, actually I have a group practice, Victorious Living, where we serve individuals
Okay.
that have, that have insurance or are self-pay. And we did do some free mental health services, but the need was so great for free mental health services that I said, no, I can't continue to do it this way. So how can I do this? So I started the nonprofit to be able to offer those services unrestricted to individuals in Florida.
That is so awesome. Now, how are you funded? You're a nonprofit, so are you doing it on grants and things of that nature?
Yes, definitely grants and community partnerships, private donations, different things like that.
Have you noticed that in the lower socioeconomic areas, that's where the mental health is needed the most because that's where it's not offered a lot? Have you
hmm
noticed that? That are certain
Yes.
areas are more prone to mental health issues where they can't afford it, and your services come right in need of that.
Absolutely, as well as stigma. Stigma plays a
Yes.
huge role in people in lower in different groups, but specifically in lower socioeconomic statuses or areas not getting the services, because a lot of times there's a limit in access to information, and there's so much stigma regard that goes generational and generations back,
Yeah.
where if you admit that you're sad or you're depressed or you're
Mhm.
anxious or you're
Mhm.
having flashbacks or whatever it is, right? Or you're just not feeling like yourself. You had a baby and you don't feel right. You lost someone and you just can't shake it. You've been praying about it, but you're still sad. You're still dealing with grief and loss. That something must be wrong with you. You're not praying hard enough, or you're not strong enough, right? Or you're not counting your blessings, and all
Yeah.
of these things that we hear and sometimes that we say that are well intentioned, but they're contributing to stigma and shame
Right.
to
Yes.
receive
Yeah.
services.
And that is something because I see it's more prevalent in the African American communities. I
Yes.
like what you said, it's generational.
Yes.
Growing up, mom and daddy told you don't go out there and discuss your
Mhm.
business and different things like that. So you grow up with those stigmas,
Yes.
and you
Yes.
were tagged as crazy if you
Yeah.
went to see anybody within mental health. You were crazy. And I feel today that people don't they're not educated on what counseling is. They're not
Mhm.
educated on what therapy is. And there's a difference there. And people don't
Yes.
understand that counseling is one thing, but really the therapeutic interventions and therapy is something a little different. And it's the psychoeducation that you have to give people so they
Mhm.
understand the realm of what's going to happen and how it can make them feel better and live life prosperously.
Absolutely. And going back to something you said about, mom and dad told you not to say anything
Mhm.
outside of the house, but going back even further than that, do a quick history lesson, going
Yeah.
all the way back to slavery,
Yes.
where our people were very limited in what they could do, what they could say, what they could speak about. So you had to keep it inside. It wasn't safe to speak outside the house about what was going on or anything like that. So for the most part, people took it to the church or, whatever their
Mhm.
faith was,
Mhm.
and then because that was the only safe place to cope and to express and to release what was happening. But then what ended up happening is it contributed to that stigma. And only white people get counseling or only
Mhm.
rich people get counseling. All of those internalized messages that people have internalized over the years and over generations are contributing to the stigma that we're seeing now. Thankfully, because we also have access and there are people who look like you and me,
Yes.
that are in these roles, because that's another thing too. Finding a provider who looks like you, who understands your struggles, your lived experiences,
Cultural.
someone that you're more likely to trust. And so that also makes a big difference. So we're putting a little dent in addressing stigma, and even conversations like this help to address stigma, but we still have a long way to go.
We do. And with the new healthcare changes that are coming about, I feel that your business is going to really flourish.
Mm,
Because there are going to be so many changes that certain people that may have healthcare insurance now, it will be changing. So
yes.
they're going to still need that and they're going to come to your business. So I applaud you for having that business there to still help the community when their insurance is not going to cover it or this might not cover it, but you're there, they can continue that care. So that is
Yes.
very important, very important. What are you seeing an uptick in mental health disorders?
Hmm. Um, Definitely depression, anxiety. I'm
Anxiety.
also seeing a lot of psychosis,
Yeah.
a lot of people having thoughts of, or things that are not there, not really in touch with reality. I've seen there's definitely an increase in suicidal behaviors and
Yes.
attempted suicide and successful, well, not successful, but completed suicides, and things like that, because people are just really struggling and they don't feel heard, they don't feel safe, they don't feel like that anyone gets it, or they feel like, I'll just be better off not here.
Yes.
So those are some of the things that we're seeing a lot. We're also seeing a lot of behavioral issues in children,
Mhm.
which a lot of times is rooted in trauma, rooted in
Mhm.
anxiety and depression, and they don't know how to handle it. Or even the adults in their lives don't know how to deal with it and how to help them regulate. They may not be able to regulate themselves
Yes.
as adults,
Yeah.
so then it definitely passes down to the children.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of that in my practice as well, a lot of adverse childhood experiences that are now
Yes.
manifesting themselves when they're getting older. And it's something how it's coming out in their behaviors and relationship
Yes.
issues and things of that nature. Anxiety is another thing. People are anxious because of the fact that the economy, they're
Mhm.
anxious and they can't deal with the anxiety and things of that nature. And then,
Mhm.
you put the anxiety, you go to the grocery store and you get depression after that because you used up
Mhm.
all your money trying to put food on the table. So it is a negative cycle and people
Mhm.
don't know how to break that negative cycle. So I've seen an uptick in that as well. What What interventions or what would you say to the loved ones of those recently arrested or incarcerated in this season who might
Mhm.
be faced with grief because
Mm.
this is a different season now? Their loved one is not with them. It could be a husband, it could be a daughter, it could be a son.
Mhm.
What advice would you give them in this season?
That feel all the feels.
Yeah.
Everything that they're feeling is normal, you know. Allow themselves to feel what they feel, give themselves grace, give yourself grace, you know. This is a process, and especially if it's a new process, but even if it isn't, even if someone has gone through the process before, it doesn't necessarily minimize the blow, you know, the
Mhm.
emotional blow, the grief, the trauma, the re-traumatization, the guilt, the
Yeah.
shame, all of the things that they might be feeling. So
Yes.
give themselves permission to feel those things and get connected, you know, get
Yeah.
connected, get support with people who are going through something similar, with a counselor, with your faith community, friends, whatever, family members, just to really have someone to rely on, or individuals to rely on, and to help them cope.
And that's so important because I still feel that, when I go
Mhm.
see my son coming home, I take a day for myself because I'm feeling that
Mhm.
shame. I feel that guilt, what kind of parent. There's so many things that I have to work through. But I
Yes.
allow myself to feel those things and then work through it. I don't stay in it, you know.
Right.
And that is important that I feel it and then work through it. And it's hard because I'm the counselor, so I know how to work through it. But I think
Right.
about somebody else that doesn't know how to work through it.
Don't have the
And maybe
skills. Yeah.
that's the
Mhm.
time that they need to get into a mental health program and see a therapist so they can learn
Mhm.
some interventions
Mhm.
to work through those issues. It's so important. Lee, would you like to comment?
Um, I was just thinking, there's such a community out there that need help, and as you said, the shame and the guilt of not wanting to say that we're reaching out for counsel, so, because we've always done. But I was just thinking also for myself and stuff, and wanted to know from both counselors, is it okay that counseling goes on for a period of time? It's not something that you can just have a session and then you can go back and everything's okay and stuff. It's got to be continuous because it's a work through, it's a process to go along that stuff. Um, and it's different for every individual. So sometimes for me, I know I go through some things and then everything's okay and stuff, and I might go for months or a year, and then I go into some feelings again or so, and just need to reach out and talk to someone about those things. But I had to come to a point where I found that it was okay to do that, and it was okay to feel the things that we were feeling stuff. And like Dr. James said, I had to give myself grace and know that it was okay.
Yes.
Work through it and reach out to Lynn because she knows she's my person. I go right to her. We go a different way and stuff. Uh, but I go there and I have to work through some things because it's hurtful. We're human and we
Mhm.
feel things along the way. And as a caregiver to my loved one that was incarcerated, and caregivers to others that are with their person that have been incarcerated or is incarcerated and stuff, we need some help too as we're
Mhm.
helping them through their process. So
Yeah.
I was just wondering if it's okay that if you stay in that counseling mode for a period of time and stuff, can we say that it's not just a one-time thing that you a one and go and stuff? You have to go through that for a while. It's okay to stay there with the counseling aspect of it.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yes. You know, it's it shouldn't definitely shouldn't be a one-time thing, you know, unless you're just doing a check-in. But in order to get to the point where you check in occasionally with your counselor, you would have had to spend some time doing the work. And it also doesn't have to be a one-time thing, because we go through different phases of life, different experiences. So you may have gone to counseling for something and did the time, met your goals, work through it, and you're fine and you're ready to be done with counseling. But then later on, months later, years later, something else happens and you need to go right back. It doesn't mean that something's wrong, or the thing that you went to the first time you were fine, but then something happened and re-triggered you. So you need to kind of go back and, just get a little bit more support. All of that is fine and normal.
So we have to get that relationship with the counselor, so that we're feeling comfortable with them, with talking to them and coming to them when we need to come to them for that support, or counsel or direction or something.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you mentioned something, and I'm sorry,
No, it's good.
relationship is really important.
Yes.
You sometimes it might take a few times to find the counselor that you feel connected with, or that you feel understands you, that you feel safe with, that you trust. So sometimes people will go and it's not a good fit. It doesn't necessarily mean something's wrong. The person is just not a good fit for them. I mean, something might be wrong, but
Yeah.
either way, either way, it's okay to try a different one. You just like, it's, I guess you can compare it to trying on a pair of shoes. You might like it, but then it just doesn't fit right. So you have to try a couple until you find, you're like, okay, this is the one.
And I
Okay.
love your analogy with that. Also, let me add on to that. When you go to the counselor for the first time, the counselor is going to do an assessment.
That's
Where
right.
are you? What are you dealing with? Then your counselor, your therapist is going to do a treatment plan. And your
Hmm.
treatment plan could be anywhere from 3 months to 6 months. So then you'll be discharged after you have met the goals and objectives. So you
Hmm.
don't want to go just for one time, because then you're not meeting the goals and objectives that are set forth in that treatment plan. The treatment plan is just like when you go to the doctor, they give you an antibiotic. They tell you to
Yeah.
take it for 7 days or 14 days, and then the affection will be gone. Well, it's the same thing with therapy. We're going to do the interventions just like an antibiotic, but you have to go for a certain amount of sessions in order to find the healing there. And then again, you have to work with the counselor. We work together. Okay.
Hmm.
So you have to do the homework and the things that are set forth. And, some people don't like the one on one counseling. And Dr. James, I know that you do also a lot of group counseling, don't you?
Yes, we offer groups as well. We
And
offer
some
groups,
people,
couples, and family counseling
wonderful.
also.
And family counseling is important for those loved ones of the incarcerated, because you know what? People don't consider the children. And the
Hmm.
children go through a lot. You will see it in behavior issues and things of that nature. They forget about the children. Children are
Hmm.
suffering too, especially this time of year where mommy or daddy, or mommy and daddy, are
That's right.
incarcerated, and they're left with a grandmom. And then here's grandmom who's in her senior golden years, and she's trying to raise children. So there's
Hmm.
so many dynamics there, that the group counseling can handle. There's grief group counseling, and you're going through a period of grief there without your loved one being there, losing that relationship. To
Right.
It was an everyday relationship, so that is a grief issue as well. There are grief groups and things of that nature. So there's a lot involved there, but your counselor, you should build that relationship, because when you build that trust and that therapeutic relationship, you're going to allow the counselor to get into some areas that no one else can get into, to pull things out and excavate the roots of problems. So I'm a firm believer in relationship building, and that's a good thing. Your groups that you do, relationship and family, how how does it work with the children? Do the children also come into the family group sessions?
Sometimes it depends.
Okay.
Sometimes we have children a part of a family session, but sometimes we don't. It just really depends on what the situation is and if it would be helpful to do that or not. Sometimes we might
Right.
bring them in for a portion of it, right? And then send them back out and work with the adults. It really depends.
Okay. And that's important that you're doing that, because there are so many things that the kids need to learn. And, like I said, children are going through so much. So once the parent is able to assess and see what the child is going through, they know it is a result of, you know, the loss of that relationship and keeping them together. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate that all that you're doing for the community. I mean, it's a great outreach. I commend you and your staff. How many staff members do you have?
Five. I have some people moving around, so I think I'm at five now.
That is great.
Yes.
I just
Mhm.
commend you on that because it takes a lot to have that type of business because you don't know what you're going to deal with. There are different
Mhm.
dynamics all the time on things that you're dealing with. So I just thank you for your spirit. And one other thing I want to touch on, a lot of times people feel that, well, I'm praying over it. I'm praying over it. Can you just, for a minute talk about prayer and medicine.
Yes.
Say, like I always say, well, I'm praying over, I'm gonna get hands laid on. Well, until God delivers you, you need to take your meds for this issue. Do
Mhm,
you
mhm.
agree with that in
Oh,
mental?
absolutely.
Okay.
That's I be preaching to the choir.
Okay.
My mantra for that is you can have Jesus or whoever you serve
Yes.
and a therapist, okay? And I like to tell people, if you, let's say you go to the doctor and you're diagnosed with something,
Mhm,
right? Whatever it is, you're going to pray about it. You're going to fast if you fast, or talk
mhm.
to your pastor, your prayer warriors, whatever, but you're also going to follow your treatment plan, right? Of whatever the doctor is saying, whether it's chemotherapy, whatever it is, medication that you have to take, by orally or whatever, you're going to do it in addition to participating in your faith and believing God, or for your healing. So it's the
Yes.
same thing. I hear it's really sad, but sometimes I'll hear a lot of people say, well, if I see a counselor, somehow that diminishes my faith. It doesn't. God, and if you really want to get deep with it, go ahead, do a little research. There is scripture that addresses, counseling and so forth, and anxiety, right? So it just depends on, like we mentioned before, access and people not knowing or making those connections. And I'm a Christian. I do not identify as a Christian counselor for
Mhm.
a couple of reasons, but one of the reasons is that I don't want that to be a deterrent, because, faith can also have some trauma linked to it for some people
Okay.
and be very shame based. But I say I am a counselor who is a Christian,
Okay.
right? Yeah. So, and if people want to bring that into, or want me to incorporate that into my work, into our work together, sure, we can. And if not, that's okay too.
Okay. How about the LGBTQIA plus? All of
Hmm.
these initials
Yes.
now. Do you also are you friendly with the LGBTQIA?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I'm friendly. We're friendly with everybody,
I love
because yeah, because you know what, we subscribe to the part of the Bible, right?
do not judge.
That says well, yeah, that too. But I was gonna say to love and accept everyone. And so even if you feel that someone's way of being, or their lifestyle, their choices, whatever, is not quote unquote right in the sight of God, well, then that applies to all of us, because we all sin and fall short of the glory, right?
Yeah.
So, and a sin, whatever the sin may be, unless someone is caught in the act, or they tell you, you don't know. So how is it okay to decipher, to work with this one and not that one, if you feel like there's some type of sin? So yes, no, we welcome everyone. And I'll say, when Pulse happened some years ago here in the city of Orlando, it took my allyship for that community to a whole
Wow.
nother level. Because I mean, from participating in death notifications to just all of this stuff that we did as counselors back in that time, but sitting with people and hearing their stories about how I wanted to go to church after escaping that, to thank God for helping me to make it out of that, but I was ashamed because I'm gay, or I'm bisexual, or or whatever it is. And that broke my heart as a Christian. I was very angry, honestly, with the Christian community, and I said, we have to do better. There is
Yes.
no reason we should make people feel this way, you know. And I remember, I'll never forget it, that morning because it was early Sunday morning that it happened, and I woke up to my phone going off. It was crazy. Phone calls, voicemails, text messages. I turned on the news, like, what is happening? And saw what happened. And I checked my voicemail, and I got a call from like my boss's boss at that time. And she was like, Letitia, we need all the licensed counselors in the city, to come to this place and that place. And I said, hold on, I need a couple hours. I got to go to church first to get my strength up to walk into that, and that in and of itself is privilege. I had the privilege to do that, but I just could not. I knew as a counselor, you're always supposed to be ethical and do no harm. And I felt like if I did not go to church first to get my strength up to walk into that, I would not have been helpful to anybody,
Yes.
And so I think about the people who were actually there and experienced it and were shot or lost someone, or, whatever happened. And you're telling me that these same people are feeling ashamed of their faith because that just wasn't right to me. So I became a lot more vocal and say, I'm an ally, and if you don't like it, too bad. So yeah.
That's something, a lot of people don't know that we do disaster counseling. We sign up for that. And a lot of people don't know, when you register your license, renewal, they'll ask you,
They do,
are you
yeah.
available for disasters such as hurricanes and earthquakes,
Yes.
all kind of things. I remember the building in Miami that
Yes,
sank,
collapsed. Yeah.
collapsed. That's mental health counseling. So we do disaster counseling as well. And it takes that prayer and that strength of God to get us through that. And then we as counselors have to disconnect after that, so it's to
Yes.
replenish. So I thank you for the work that you're doing in the community. You are on our website. You're as well on our Facebook group. And so I just want all of my people out there to realize that next week we're going into 2025. Will you thrive in 25, or will it be the same old you in a new year? It's a new year. What will you bring into that new year? Will you leave anything into 2024? Yes, we understand incarceration is hard. It hurts. I know that. It hurts. But changing you can change some situations around you. Changing the way you think can change the way you feel. Get into a great counseling program if needed for 2025 so you can thrive. Dr. Brown James has a counseling center. It's accessible right in the heart of Orlando and Metro West, right? Yeah.
Yes, but even if people
Telehealth.
live far,
That's
we could do it by
wonderful.
video, we could do
Yes.
phone. Yeah.
So there are no excuses. Make sure that you thrive in 2025 and let it go in 2024. New year, new you. Lee, would you like to comment on anything?
I just think that it's wonderful, all of that Dr. Brown James offer. And I wish that the services, as far as free services, were available to more community in the same way that they their services to the area that you're serving. And the telehealth and all of that tele stuff that they can do right on the computer and stuff, that's such a wonderful thing, because there's so many out there that are hurting, so many people that need help, and we're getting better, but
Mm-hmm.
we get as far as getting the need. And a lot of those that commit crimes, or even way of crimes being committed, um, those of a need for help that they didn't get or that they are seeking or so. And so that of also, as well as the outside and stuff, the area that we deal with crime and stuff needs to also be in the facilities. So I thank you so much for what you offer. You are quite a blessing, you and your
Mm-hmm.
group. Appreciate
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. You as well.
Yes. So as we end this evening, we want to thank Dr. Brown James for being with us this evening to let you know there's help out there. All you have to do is reach out. God gives you the resources and he gives you the knowledge. Use the knowledge to reach out. You know, you can ask Lee and I. We will let you know what's available, because when it happened to us, there were no resources like there are now. We found out so many resources out there to help you. So this is why we started this support group, because we wanted no loved one to be left alone and left with where, what, when, why. So from our lessons learned, we're here to help you. So everybody, I hope you have a healthy, safe holiday season. Remember, thrive in 25. A new year, make it a new you. Good night, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we will see you on January the 6th. And we have a special guest for you as well, and he will be talking about his nonprofit organization, which is a production company where he lets the inmates make films about their life and tell their own story. So
Wow.
until we see you again, God bless. Thank you. Dr. Brown James, thank you so much. Happy
Thank
holidays.
you. Thank you for having